this is going to be a near miss. You get these two jabronis who have got the wife's dinner roast.
Hey, do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
Hello there.
And for this episode, we'll be joined by our good friend, Tony.
Hey, how's it going?
And today, we will be reviewing the 1975 American thriller Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg, screenplay by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, and based on the 1974 novel by the same name, Jaws, also written by Peter Benchley. And as always, this podcast will be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, first of all, welcome to Earth. Second of all, go see it, then come back and listen to the podcast. But before we dive into it, let's run that trailer.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. But you let people go swimming anyway.
You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah. What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
Bad fish. But I'll catch him and kill him.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
This shark, swallow you whole. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
Hurry up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot!
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfus, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
So, before we get started, I want to ask you guys, is this actually a horror movie or is it a drama based on tragic events? Tony, what do you think?
Oh, it's completely a horror movie. It's pretty much a slasher with an animal as the slasher. It's one by one. It's a stalking movie. You got the herrings. Is it's just bluefish. Oh, it's a tiger shark. You know, it's totally a slasher.
And Lynn, what's your take on it?
honestly, I know that this is probably an odd take, but I feel like it's a horror movie, but it's a horror movie that's more focused on the people than it is on the actual slasher villain bad guy, you know? There's a lot of the human story happening in this movie. I find that to be like the most compelling part of the whole movie to me.
I agree with you. I also feel like this is kind of a drama that's, tells a story of, three people from three totally different walks of life. And, they're trying to deal with this tragedy that's going on. But, sure, it's also a horror movie. Absolutely. So,
I mean, there's severed limbs and stuff. So,
all right. So, I think with this one, we really have to start with the credits for the stars. I mean, this is where we're going to hear that iconic music for the first time, playing with the murky shots of the water. And what do you guys think?
I mean, it's just the opening is just such an iconic at this point in iconic setup. It's just the just the two notes, it leads in, and then it sets it up in such a, and then you're just dropped on the beach.
Oh, I love it. I mean, you're getting that that murky water, the seaweed, and you're a musician as I am. So what is that? That's an E and an F, right? Two notes.
Yep.
Perfect.
Well, I also would say that especially in this movie, the music is a character all of its own.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
Because it's setting things up, and you kind of get to this point where like you're expecting to hear that music anytime that the shark's coming, and we won't get ahead of ourselves, but there are times where they fake you out with that because you're not hearing that music, and then all of a sudden something happens, and you're like, ah. So
when was the last time the credits were getting you creeped out? I mean, you got that music. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be good. All right, so let's go to the opening scene. This is where we're gonna meet Chrissy and Cassidy, and they're basically like two hippie kids. They're at a keg beach party, and she's giving them the eyes, and she gets up and decides she wants to go swimming, and he's gonna follow, and he is gonna fall asleep drunk on the beach, and she is gonna go out for the swim. Let's talk about it.
Oh man, it's just again watching it's funny because it's the way it was shot. Behind the scenes trivia, day for night. There are certain parts you could see that it's very, very bright for moonlight. That they set it up. It's like the far shots, and then the intimate shots, and then the below shots.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I actually had mentioned that to Dylan. I was noticing, some views look kind of like daybreak, some look night. So I was noticing that, Dylan.
Yeah, it's just and just the tug on the foot.
She actually was wearing a harness on her leg, and the crew was out on the shoreline with a cable that was tied to it, and they were pulling it and not telling her when they were going to pull it, trying to get that reaction out of her of being scared. And I thought it worked really well.
100%, definitely.
Yeah, I think to me the scariest part of that scene is what you don't see.
Yeah.
It's like this is like obviously you're going to a movie called Jaws. You have an idea there's a shark involved. You've seen the poster, but at the same time, like when you saw this the first time, it's like, oh my God, like it's horrific.
Yeah, the shots from underneath the swimmer are great. You're getting that, POV from Jaws, which is pretty cool. And I want to ask about the attack itself, though. A little strange with the washing machine effect. He's pulling her around and she's screaming, kind of. And I know you want to do that because you want the effect and everything. But I mean, I think we all can agree that Jaws probably would have just bit her twice and pulled her under, and that would have been it.
Yeah. Yeah, the shaking, the dragging, the whole thing wouldn't happen. But it just are so terrifying.
Absolutely.
And they're pleading. Just that when she hits the buoy and goes into prayer the fact she's pulled away and then dropped under before she even can finish a sentence. That's the scary part. It's like most movies would have her the line and pull it down, but it's just like it's so savage.
Yes.
Yeah. And that gulping noise that she makes, like that thing, like I was just like, oh my God, that's terrifying. Just like she's in so much pain she can't even vocalize what's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm glad they didn't just, do the two bites and pulling her under. I mean, obviously this is a horror movie. We want to get that, we want to get that horror. So Good kill. Good kill.
It's just interesting because again, I've read the book recently again just to sort of get back in.
Oh, cool.
To do that every summer, and it's funny because in the book, which I'll probably be doing this the whole time. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
No, bring it.
She feels the tug on her leg, and she actually reaches down and feels warmth, and then she's like, "Well, my foot should be here," and then she feels the bone, and it's gone, and that's and then it hits her like a freight train, and then it's just what we see. But that first, it's like, oh, what was that? You don't even the pain was so of removing.
Wow.
It's so well written and put across on film.
So Tony, being someone that reads books and watches movies, and Dylan, I know you're the same. Do you guys find that sometimes the book actually paints a scarier picture than the movie?
Yes.
This case?
With this, I was going to get to it when we get to it. The Kintner attack in the book, I still picture when I go to the beach.
Oh no!
Because when we get to the attack, but it's the way that he writes it is beautiful.
Yeah,
they have so many more words and they have the ability when they're writing a book to put the picture right into your brain of exactly what they're thinking. So when you're seeing a movie, it's visual, yes, and you're hearing it, but it's not like they're putting the thoughts into your brain like what happens with a book. And they also usually have a lot more time to give you information in a book. So
right. Well, the way Tony painted the picture of her, feeling the warmth and then reaching down and feeling the stump, you got to wonder if, it's 1975, you look at a movie like RoboCop a little further along where they're showing some extreme gore. Maybe they held back a scene like that, because
maybe
we just weren't ready for it at that point.
Oh, and they were going for the PG rating.
It's true.
When you look back at what it is, it's a pretty violent movie. The amount of bloodshed is pretty significant for a PG movie, but
and it's credited as being the first summer blockbuster, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it was actually one of the first ones to be released during the summer. They usually would hold off for winter for their big deal projects at that time. That's how it was normally done. And this one changed the way movies were released going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's go to the next scene. So we're going to meet Sheriff Martin Brody here, played by Roy Scheider, and we're going to meet his wife Ellen, played by Lorraine Gary. And they're laying in their bedroom, and he's getting ready for work. And I don't know about you. Did you pick up on that heavy New York accent she was putting out?
Like you're from New York.
Yes, we know right away they're not from the vineyard. We know it's not the vineyard, but they're not from
Amity. Yeah, they're not islanders.
Right. So he's going to go downstairs. The son's going to come in. He's cut his hand, and I think this is going to come up a little bit later in one of the kills. He's going to bring it up then, and we're going to see if maybe this is why the shark killed where he killed at the time. But he's going to get a phone call, and we're going to find out that something's happened. We don't know what it is, but something's happened, and he's going to, say goodbye to his family. He's going to jump in his truck, and he's going to take a ride down to the beach. And this is where we're going to see that giant, iconic Amity billboard for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is funny. So I'm sure you guys know this, but, obviously Amity isn't real. It's Martha's Vineyard. And the reason they chose Martha's Vineyard was mostly because the surrounding ocean bed had a depth of about 35 feet for up to 12 miles offshore. Mm-hmm. And they could shoot the scenes and just lay the shark down on the bottom of the ocean floor and still get it up quite easily. So that's really why they chose Martha's Vineyard for the location for the most part, as far as I know.
Yep, and actually saved them quite a bit when the shark would go off track and they actually lose it in the surf. It was like, well, at least it's only 30 feet. So
That's right. And the sign, of course, is that's awesome. It's so iconic. Absolutely. So we meet Cassidy again, and he's telling Brody, she went missing, and at this point, you're kind of getting the feeling like Brody is maybe not believing his story, but he says, "Hey, man, I called you. I'm telling you." And then, we're seeing Deputy here basically puking in a barrel as he finds the remains.
Right. I found that this shot to be incredibly well shot. Like, it's super cinematic. Like, you're seeing that hand, you see her hair, you see the little crabs crawling on her, but they don't show you it, and they don't have to. Like,
Right.
you know what you're seeing without having to actually see it.
Right.
And just the way the Deputy Hendricks is reacting, it's, again, it reiterates this is a small town. They're not used to this kind of thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Any seasoned cop would be like, all right, it's a body. But
That's
he's
right.
so undone. It just shows the sensitivity and the lack of shock that they're used to.
Right.
No, that's funny. So that brings up a point. Was Brody a cop in New York? Do we know that?
Yes. He actually
was.
transferred from New York, yeah.
So for him, maybe this isn't quite as shocking.
I took that as his, obviously, oh my God, there's a body, but he kept himself together, kept himself poised, and even writing up the accident report after he was very matter of factly doing my job. Call the coroner. This is what it is. Okay, we're gonna no undoneness on him.
Yeah, I kind of got the same feeling like maybe this was old hat to him, but maybe not old hat because we obviously start to realize throughout the movie that Brody is scared shitless of the ocean. He doesn't even want to put a toe in when the attacks are happening.
Yeah.
Funny fact though, the hand actually they had a prosthesis hand and they didn't like the way it looked, so they buried one of the actresses in the sand, and that's a real hand sticking out of the sand.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that they dressed up for the movie shot.
It's a great shot. Like, it's one of the ones, like, when I think about the cinematography in this movie, and there's definitely parts I'll point out as we go along that caught my eye. This is the first one that, like, the where they've got the camera, where they're aiming, the way her hand looks, the little crabs, and I was just like, wow, that's a shot. Like, that was like somebody thought of that, and it's artful, like it's really beautifully shot for such a gruesome scene.
There's a lot of beautiful shots in this movie.
Oh God, yeah.
All right, so next, as Tony was saying, we're going to see Brody typing up the report, and they make a point of doing a full shot of him typing in the word shark attack.
Yeah.
So he knows that this was a shark attack. I mean, there's no question in his mind that this is a shark attack. Am I right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. And he knows the beach should be closed 100%. So now we're going to go into town. It's we're seeing that Amity is getting ready for the 4th of July celebration, and Brody's going to go into a hardware store. He finds some materials to make some signs to close the beaches. And next we're going to see Mayor Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, and he's informed by one of the deputies that that Brody is in fact going to close the beaches, and he's not having it. So he's going to rush off and catch Brody on the car ferry. He's going to pull these kids out of the water that are doing their mile swim for the Cub Scouts. And let's talk about this scene, because I thought this was pretty interesting. Whoever wants to take it first, Tony?
I just think it's funny that he actually panicked. So went, got the coroner, got the other townspeople to basically gang up.
Oh yeah,
this new sheriff. Like they definitely had strength in numbers there, and already told the coroner, like, you're wrong. This is not happening.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was, and just watching again, touching back on the fact that Brody can't stand the water, him clinging to the side of the clinging to the side of the rail, like really not moving. Like, he doesn't move much in this scene. And it's perfectly that for that point to get home.
Oh yeah, and the mayor, he's in his shark gray suit, and the townspeople have basically surrounded him like a circle of sharks. they're looking for blood. You're telling him, you're changing your mind, you're changing your report. This is a boating accident. Everybody knows it's bullshit, and they're also. I mean, I took it as a threat when they said, this is your first summer. It's a threat. It's a threat, and he takes it as such, and he reluctantly. Agrees to go with the boating accident.
I'd also like to point out that it was very much a calculated decision to drive the car right onto the ferry. Now, I know it's a ferry for cars. I get that. But it's like he could have pulled the car up. They could have gotten out and gotten onto the ferry because they were just looking to talk to him. He wasn't actually going anywhere on the ferry because he had them take him right back, and he just drove back into town. Right. So you pull that car onto that ferry, and you've given Martin no place to go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to just touch on this real quick before we moved on much further. That first shot, that first kill, that scene actually took 3 days to film, just as a fact. I mean, I thought that was interesting for such a short scene. It took 3 full days to get that one.
Well, that was the entire shoot, apparently. 53 days turned into what, 157-day shoot.
That's
Wow.
right. That's right.
I figure we would discuss it later, but if we're bringing that, just everything took longer. Everything went wrong.
Yeah, he thought it was going to be, easy shooting on the ocean, and it turned out, people were going to be sailing, and you can't say, hey, get off the ocean, we're shooting here. So they'd have to wait for boats to go through the scenes, and it just turned out to be a nightmare for them.
Yeah, totally.
But
Robin, the medical examiner, is actually the island doctor. Robert Evan is actually the doctor in Martha's Vineyard at the time. They're like, you want the part? All right, come on.
Oh,
and it's funny, and they actually called him Robert Devine, and he is Robert Devine. So there you go.
Yeah,
real name, stage name were the same in that one.
That's awesome.
So all right, so now we're going to get to the second kill. We're going to meet Alex Kittner. For me, this is by far the goriest kill, the most shocking kill. This one for me is like, they did this one right. I loved it.
I just go ahead, Dylan. I need.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, it's like that. It's the plume of blood.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, like, and you see the kid go, and then that's it. It's over. And to me, the actual bloody, ripped raft just in the surf at the end of the scene is worse than if you saw him actually dead.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh my God, like, it's just like, that's all that's left is this little raft, and there's blood all over the surf, and it's gross.
It was a shocking kill, and I loved it. I thought it was the best one in the movie. Go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, I don't even know where to start with this. I have so much to throw.
I know you do. Let it out.
Okay, let's start with the book. The fact that it almost starts the chapter. It's an overcast day. There's only like 4 people on the beach, him and his mother, and like a couple of random passerbys. And he's like, "Can I go in the water?" She's like, "Sure, go ahead." So he basically just lays on his raft. He doesn't paddle out much. The current takes him out. He's not splashing. He's not doing anything. And he looks down. He's basically just looking down at the water, and he sees this dark shape pass below him.
Scary.
And as then it basically the way he describes it, almost like you're viewing from above, you see that it's basically 4 to 5 times his body length of him on the raft. And then, so it's like, what do? You're 100 yards offshore. You can't go anywhere. That's terrifying. He knew,
absolutely,
in the book, he knew something was coming.
Oh yeah.
That's just god awful. All right.
Yeah.
So taking him back to in the movie, he's just like, hey, I'm doing my thing, and then gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the terror of the book better. It sounds like there's a lot more build up to it and a lot more suspense.
So, in the movie, it's the whole lead up of just, the false, you get Bad Hat Harry thinking it's going to be the shark. You get the woman screaming who's lifted out of the water. Then you get Pippett's disappeared. The dog's gone. It's like, here, we're leading up here. And then they're like, can I go out in the water? Sure, go ahead, but don't, And then it's coming because the music's getting dark.
Yeah.
And he's paddling, and we get the underwater shots. We see the legs. Again, perfect setup, perfect pacing. Spielberg is just a master, and his editor, who I'm totally blanking on right now. But the initial shot for that, which is like, and again, this is where my geekness comes from. It's like, this is my holy grail. If I could find this footage somewhere, I'll be. There's a still picture, and it's literally god awful terrifying, of the shark's head coming out of the water, mouth gaping open on him.
Oh,
and
really?
But it looked so. Now I've seen the backstage footage. Like, someone had a Super 8 camera filming the making, and it looks terrible from the side. It's 16 millimeter. It doesn't look good, and they shows this looks too fake. But that still picture is like nightmare fuel for me.
And this is on the Alex attack.
Yeah, he comes up from the bottom and slams down and then rolls him. So that's why when you sort of roll to the side when he's taking him down, and the geyser of blood. That's why, because that was the original shot. It was him coming up, slamming down on him, and rolling over.
Oh, I'd like to see that as well. That sounds great.
It's
we kind of glossed over the build up to it with all the misdirects, like you said, with the black swim cap and the couple playing and the scream and through this, you get these great shots of Brody, guys trying to talk to him, and he's just like, he's out in space looking over the guy's shoulder out at the ocean. he knows what's going on. He knows there's a buffet out there, and he's the one that brought everybody to the buffet.
And again, for the cinema geeks, going back to the editing, when they're doing the face on of Brody,
mm-hmm.
the way that he edits, someone walks by the camera and you're zoomed in about 4 feet. Someone walks by the other way, you're zoomed in another 3 feet. You don't
mm-hmm.
notice it until you're like told about it. You're like, genius. It's like,
it gets closer and closer to his face because it's showing his panic rising.
And then, of course, at the end, as a parent, realizing your child is the one who's not on the beach is a whole nother level at that point. It's like, when I was a kid, it's like, oh my God, the kill was so great. Now as a parent, I now know, like, my terror has shifted to, oh my God, where's my son? Where's my son? Where's my son? And it has a whole nother level of weight to it. It's like, oh God, that's
I got that when Pippin went missing because, I don't have a child, but I do have a Pippin. So Doc, stay out of the tub. All right. So, and, in the wrap, washing up, of course, the kid and her mother sees it and, she obviously knows that she lost the lottery that day. So that's pretty heart-wrenching.
And I appreciate that they didn't get into her, like, freaking out at that point because she puts out like, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but she puts out the bounty, and of course you see her later, so you don't have to spend a bunch of time watching her totally freak out. It was the scene on the beach, enough of her just the realization setting in was more than enough.
Agreed. So next we're going to meet Quint for the first time, and this is at the town meeting, and the town is outraged at the thought of closing the beaches. These people are a little callous. They're making jokes. They don't seem to be taking the Kittner death very seriously or the shark very seriously. They just basically are putting pressure on the mayor to keep the beaches open. And this is where it comes back to, people are always like, oh, the mayor's a villain, the mayor's a villain. Is he a villain? Or is he a guy that's running a very small town that depends on the summer income to keep them going through the winters? I mean, he's making obviously some very questionable decisions, but is he a bad guy?
Well, I mean, I feel like he is. I feel like if you look at this as a human story, he's the bad guy of the story because, people are when he is told by people that know better, this is a problem, and he continues to ignore it. It's like, guy, come on. And it's not until like later that he finally kind of catches on. But, people are like, oh, the shark's the villain. Not really. The shark is doing what a shark does. So.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of villains in this movie. I see more victims. Tony, what do you think?
I feel that he's got a lot of pressure on, as Quint puts it, the summer dollars. So, and no one's on welfare all winter. But again, the dropped storyline from this, and again, it crosses into is that he actually has money tied up that he can't lose for him and for connections to New York that he owes. There's money, town money tied up. If the town money doesn't come in, there's going to be a much bigger problem.
Gotcha. Okay, but that doesn't make it to the movie.
It doesn't make it to the movie. So the movie is literally just the mob mentality of we need our dollars. That whole room, as soon as Brody's like, yes, we are going to close the beaches, explodes. And until Quint interrupts it with his nails, he was going to be lynched pretty much. It's like he's just doing his job as he should do.
Agreed. And then so we get the nails and we get Quint for the first time, and this is pretty awesome. This guy is great. I love him. I love that. This is almost for me like Roy Batty in Blade Runner. Quint is awesome. Let's give it up. And he wants $10,000 to get this shark in. Back then, that would have been equivalent to about $55,000 in today's money. So this is a lot of money he's asking for.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have to just say really quickly, I am so amused by the thought of them all having this meeting and Quint sneaking in to draw the little chalkboard, big jaws with the little man in his mouth.
That's right.
Because it wasn't there at the beginning. You're right. He
no.
had to do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny.
Fun. The original script, because again, my movie. If you want me to stop the movie geek, I'll stop it. But it's like
No,
No,
I
no,
just can't help it.
please.
His original scene was you were going to meet Quint in a movie theater in the local town, and they were going to be watching Moby Dick, and he was going to be in the back laughing and being so loud and obnoxious over it that people were leaving the theater till it was just him in the theater laughing stupidly at Ahab going down with Moby Dick.
And well, a lot of people say the Queen character is, draws a lot of parallels with Moby Dick. So,
Oh, completely, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would have been a great introduction. But I mean, how do you top what we know now?
Oh.
That speech, perfect monologue.
Yes.
Until the Annapolis, but we'll get to that when we get to
Yeah,
it.
well,
Yes.
we're going to get to that for sure. Now, I usually feather in a lot of scenes into these podcasts, but for this one, I think there's only going to be two, and that's one, and we're going to need a bigger boat as the other one. So, all right. So in this next one, if you have nothing else with the town meeting, we're going to get our third attack. This is going to be a near miss. You get these two jabronis who have got the wife's dinner roast, and they're going to chain it to a dock and try and catch Jaws, and they get them. I mean, I assume they get them. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So, but there's something I want to say. So between the end of this scene and the beginning of the scene, we get a shot of Brody reading some shark books, and we're going to get a little foreshadowing here. I mean, I think so. He's going to see a picture of a shark with an oxygen tank in his mouth. And then he's going to flip the page and we're going to see a picture of the crow's nest on the boat. Now, coincidentally, this is how the movie ends. What do you guys?
Very true.
Absolutely a little bit of foreshadowing in there for sure.
Okay. So the shark takes off with the dinner roast and, takes the dock in, and one of the guys goes in. I love this scene. It was funny saying, swim, swim.
Don't look back.
Don't look back and swim. And, he barely gets out, and, it's not a very meaningful scene, but it's a lot of fun. That's his name. Charlie, swim, don't look back.
See, this is one of my two pet peeves in the entire movie. There are a few perfect movies. This is one of them for me. Okay. And this scene bothers me so much. As you see them throw the chain down, you see them hook the thing, and then they throw the meat in, and it's taken.
Yeah.
There's about 150 feet of chain.
Yeah.
And it goes and goes and goes, and finally hits the stop, pulls the dock off. Great. Okay, I see that. So far, I'm still on board. But then it goes out and it turns. Now, that pier that's in the water chasing this man who we're visual, that's the shark. Quote, shark.
Yes.
The shark way before he reached it. 150 chain plus a 30-foot shark plus an 8-foot dock.
That's a great point.
That bothers the hell. Yeah, the shark's dragging he's not behind it pushing it. He should be dragging it. So that shark should have been on the beach by the time he was even close.
And there was a huge hook in that meat. So I'm assuming when he ate the meat, the hook would be in his mouth. So how did he get the hook out of his mouth?
And again, we could sit here and go, well, it was the and Hooper they missed
right.
It could be that. So right. But you know what? We cut that open. We didn't see a hook. So it would have to be.
We didn't see a hook, and that hook would have left a huge hole, like, a big piercing 80s style in the thing's cheek. So,
yeah. So, I
mean, I'm willing to forgive it. Honestly, until you said it, never even crossed my mind. I guess I forgot about the 150 feet of chain, as probably most people did.
Yeah, I'm a jerk that way. Sorry.
So, next scene, we're going to meet Matt Hooper for the first time. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is where the movie really started to pick up steam. Richard Dreyfus, and now I don't know if he was brought in for the comedy relief. I do know that Spielberg did bring in a writer to actually interject some humor into the script because he didn't want this to be a completely dark movie. And there is a lot of really, really clever comedy in this movie if you're looking for it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it comes from Richard Dreyfuss. It's like, hey, you want to line up and be a hot lunch? By all means, I mean, we get
it's dark comedy, but it's comedy.
Yeah, and there's a good amount of it. I mean, again, Dreyfus with, he's pointing to his heart right here. She broke my heart. This is stuff that I just love. So yeah, Richard Dreyfuss was And yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Did you guys feel like the movie, picked up a little steam here?
I feel like this movie is a movie in two parts. You have the movie that happens when they're on the island, and then the movie that happens once they leave the island. And you don't really start moving towards them leaving the island till Hooper gets there. So
Yeah.
it is like that final ingredient you need to make that happen.
Yep. And you get the the dynamics between Hooper and what's
Quint.
And Quint, yeah, which is it's really awesome. And as the movie goes on, they actually start to bond a little bit. But in this scene, we get every fisherman for 1,000 miles coming to collect the bounty. And we get some more great lines from Hooper, like they're all gonna die. These guys are all trying to. You're overfilling that boat. And these are lines that I just really loved, and they made the movie, they lightened the movie up for me a little bit, and I thought it was great.
Definitely, I love the fact that the locals in that you can tell they they're just walking through scenes, and the harbor master that walks out with the pipe looking completely lost. It was an intro to the chaos that's about to happen.
Yeah, he's clutching his cereal as he's walking out.
Just with this blank stare on his face, and the man who leads them out, their mother's a Muslim. It's just that is actually the man who Robert Shaw based a lot of his mannerisms on.
Yes, that's right. I did read that.
So it's the man who was Ben Gardner, Craig Kingsbury, who played Ben. He was a local fisherman, and his mannerisms, the way his speaking, his enunciation, Robert Shaw sat with him so many times behind the scenes and just, mimicked him. And it was
absorbed as much as he could.
Exactly. So it's great to see him actually get his little spotlights there where he could. I agree. Great scene showing the chaos that one article has put out there, and now they have to deal with it.
Oh, and they're throwing M80s in the water, and it was total chaos.
Oh, all the chum! It's like, please stop chumming the water. There's 8,000 of you out on the water. Stop.
So the role of Quint was also offered to Lee Marvin, and I don't think that would have worked for me. And also a guy like Sterling Hayden, who I don't know who that is, but Lee Marvin I'm familiar with, and I think that every actor that was chosen really needed to be in that part for this movie to be what it was. You guys think?
Oh, 100%. I couldn't. With people with it, this is one you could never recast for anybody.
John Voight, who was also thought in for Hooper, and also Jeff Bridges for Hooper, and neither of those worked for me. I mean, my favorite character in this is Hooper. I mean, that's just me, but it had to be played by Dreyfus, in my opinion.
Well, Dreyfus kind of brings the dork to it. Like he's kind of got that dorky kind of energy that you can believe that he is who he says he is.
Yes.
Even though he's Richard Dreyfuss, you know him from other movies, but like you can suspend your belief enough that you believe he's Hooper when you're watching this.
But not in 1975. He was pretty unknown then.
True.
And he had just a few lines that add a whole nother character. You think he's like, all right, he's a nerdy guy, studies sharks, shows up on the island, he's fish out of water on this island but yet he's this rich kid. He drops a couple of lines like, me or the whole family. How you guys rich? Well, me or the whole family. He's got all this money. He doesn't have to be doing what he's doing.
Right.
It nails home that he just loves doing what he's doing because he loves it, not because he has to.
Yeah, but as the character progresses through the movie, we also find out that he runs a lot of parallels with Quint as far as like, he's a rich kid, but he can tie the knot when he's Quint says, "Can you tie this knot?" Hey, he ties the knot. And then when they're showing off balloons, it's a stingray. This is a thrasher shark. I mean, he's paid his dues, and he's got a little edge to him as well.
Yeah.
So the next scene, we're at the coroner's office, and Hooper is looking at the remains of the body, and he knows this is a shark attack, and this is great because he's throwing some science at us. He's throwing some big words at us, and we're gonna find out that this kid's got a huge brain when it comes to this stuff. I loved it.
Just the shame that the medical examiner is just sitting there with his head down and no, we didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, because because the medical examiner knew better,
Yep.
and he knew better, and he was pressured into saying what he said.
Oh yeah, yeah. He looks totally shamed, and again, you get another one of these great lines by Hooper where he says, "Don't smoke in here." I love that.
And come on, this was not a boating accident. That's like, oh god, that's great.
Well, this is not a boat accident. It wasn't any propeller. It wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper. It was a shark.
Yeah. It's a great scene, and again, we were talking about this today, Delenn. How you don't have to see the remains.
I mean, they show you a little. You see her arm, and he actually pulls it up enough so you can just see that it's severed, quite obviously. But you don't need to see anything else. Like what happened there. You got it.
It was less than a 2x2 tray. That's all that was left of her.
It was a tray. He's sweating. He's asking for a glass of water. We get it. It's pretty horrific. So the next scene, we're going to be on the dock, and we got all these fat weekend warrior. No, we caught the shark. They got a tiger shark, strung up, and everybody's, even Brody is like, they got him, and we know that they didn't. And you hear Hooper at this point saying, that's not the shark. I'm not going to. And he actually says, like, I don't want to get beat up over this, but that's not the shark, basically. And we get the classic line from the mayor, we're not going to cut this thing open here and have that kitten boy spill out all over the dock.
Right.
Yeah.
But as we know later, that he's not going to. But
Right.
We're going to get a couple of license plates and what. You think that was a real shark? Was that a real
it actually was a real shark, because I made a note. It was real. They had flown it in from Florida on ice. And of course, it spent a couple of days on the dock there because everything took longer than they expected. So by the third or fourth day shooting with this dead shark, it was really starting to stink bad. And they say if you watch the actors, you can tell when it smells bad because they're all making terrible faces.
Dreyfus is gasping for air. Totally.
Oh my God. So we get a pretty powerful scene here next. This is where Miss Kittner comes up, and she's going to approach Brody, and she's going to reveal that she now knows that he was hiding the woman's death, and they knew there was a danger shark in the water, and he let people swim anyway. And she slaps him in the face, and Hooper tries to say, it wasn't your fault. He says, no, it was. And you see him walking away in shame. He knows that he played a part in that Kittner boy dying for sure. So
yeah, it's such an intense scene because it cuts the humor off of the chaos of that. Just everything's silent. Boom. You feel again another scene. You just feel the weight of it as soon as you see the two of them walking in their funeral attire up the dock. It's so powerful.
It is powerful, and it's again, this shows though how I think clever it was for Spielberg to bring in the comedy writer, because instead of this thing just being one note all the way through, where it's like, oh man, it's so depressing and dark. You're getting these these pops of kind of like the music. You're getting a lot of this like really dark ominous music, but then you're getting a lot of this really great upbeat music, like when they're chasing the shark and stuff.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of dynamic in this movie that I think takes it to the next level for sure, in my mind anyway.
So great.
Yeah. So go ahead, Tony.
I know there's just so many points off of the scene that just in the lore of the history of the movie, it's like she couldn't pull her punches, she couldn't pull her slaps. They did the scene times. At one point, she knocked his glasses off. She hit him so hard. It's like he just kept taking it until they finally found the one they liked. And the legend of her, and she was still locally in the area. So whenever someone would visit the vineyard, years later, to this day, they would ask, "Would you slap me?" Fans asked to be slapped by her because it's such an iconic thing. And one of the weird times, and again, this is the big story. I'm sure you guys have heard this. She went into a diner. A fan asked her for that, and she's like, "Okay, yeah." And the cook, who was in the back, came out, and he's like, "You played Mrs. Kittner?" She's like, "Yeah. Why?" It's like, Kittner. He was the cook. he was actually Jeffrey Voorhees was in the back as a short-run cook. He came out and basically they had a little reunion there. We kind of skipped a scene I kind of wanted to touch on that I thought was again another amazing scene. I take it back. We're about to get to is the scene of Martin drunk and his wife and him sitting with his son.
Yes, the
So
dinner scene.
I'll let you introduce that. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Great. So yeah, we actually, like you said, we now going to show up at Brody's house, and he's drinking because he's feeling bad. And I'm going to let you talk about it because you've got the kid, and I know you're going to love this great scene. But go ahead. So yeah,
it's just there's and anyone with kids will basically say that's the one thing that could take you out of any bad mood you have is a connection to your child. And so that scene, feel it until I became a parent, like that's such an amazing scene. And watching Ellen watch them, tearing up at the end once the door, like, oh, it breaks the mood. But it's such a beautiful scene between the two of them that I appreciate more now.
The child mimicking everything he's doing.
Yeah.
And you see the kid behind him, and Brody, puts his hand up on his face, and the kid puts his hand up on his face, and Brody sees this, and like you said, it kind of brings him back around, and yeah, it's a really nice touching scene. But then we're gonna get Hooper back again, and it's gonna break that mood for us again and bring us back and make it a little more fun again. And I thought this was an interesting scene because we're going to get Hooper's origin story here, basically. And he brings a bottle of red and white wine, which I thought is interesting. This shows that he is he's sophisticated, especially for Martha's Vineyard, or for Amity. He doesn't know what they're going to be serving, so he brings a bottle of red and a bottle of wine. And they're serving Brody's dinner. He pulls it over and eats it. And I thought that was great. I thought that was a great scene.
And he thought enough to pack a suit jacket in that duffel bag that he brought with him.
Correct.
Because he shows up with a suit jacket. I'm like, we had time to pack that, go and investigate a shark, but okay, I'll go with that.
Well, you also have to think that if he is from a wealthier family, that was probably a thing.
Exactly. Influential family had that. Thank you for picking that up.
Thank you.
Yes, the suit jacket and the red and white wine. I mean, we're learning a lot about this guy. He is highfalutin. So they're gonna go down to the dock and they're gonna cut that shark open now. And Hooper makes a comment about I knew he came up from wherever he said, I don't remember, but they find the license plate that verifies his suspicions of where the shark came from.
Louisiana is what the license plate says.
Yeah,
Southern water.
And there's no kid in their voice, so we know there that they definitely did not get the shark yet. So they decide they're going to jump on Coop's boat, and this is an awesome boat for 1975 with the lights underneath it, and it's loaded up with all the high tech stuff. I'm wondering why they didn't use this, opposed to that piece of shit Orca to go get Jaws.
It's my other pet peeve of this movie, man. They had this perfect scientific way of chose to leave it in port.
Okay, so good. I'm glad we all thought.
I mean,
that.
I'm guessing my guess is that Quint would not have been caught dead on that boat for any amount of money, and they needed Quint to quote unquote be on board in order for it to happen. But yes, I too agree. They probably should have taken the good boat.
Yep.
Before we jump to that, if I could just throw in one more geek thing.
Yeah.
It's funny because Ellen Brody, again, going to the book, dropped because they didn't want to make it even darker than it already was. Ellen actually knew Hooper's brother. She dated him, and the two of them had an affair before they went out to sea. I believe she knew Hooper's brother from years and years and years ago, so she kind of knew Hooper. And then while Hooper was on the island, they had an affair. And I still feel that's a great thing to leave out of the movie. But the book, it made him such an unlikable character.
Yeah.
Right. Hooper in the movie is very likable. So if you had him, helping Ellen cheat on her husband, it would have definitely brought him down in my estimation.
So towards the tail end of this movie, when they're out on the Orca, this becomes like a buddy movie. These are three bros out on a fishing trip. Am I right?
So here we're going to get what I assume is the third kill. So Hooper decides he's going to go in the water, and he dives down, and
Because they come across a boat in the water.
Yes, they come across a boat, so he's going to dive down, and this is where we get our first good jump scare.
Oh boy, I tell you what, I know it's coming every time, and it makes me jump every single time.
It's the noise, that squeaky noise. Yeah.
Yeah, he finds the corpse of Ben Gardner, a local fisherman, and it's just a head. It's pretty good. I jumped. I was scared.
I mean, I know we know it's coming. I know it's there. I've seen the movie a ton of times, and every single time my heart starts racing because I know it's coming, and I still jump. I don't know why.
Well, it's even just the fact that he's jumping in a water that he knows there's this monster shark. That's just going to happen.
Yes.
You're just so on edge. You figure it's going to come from behind him or below him, not in front of him.
Yeah, so piggyback on what you just said, Tony, about him jumping into the water with a dangerous shark. This just proves that Hooper, he's really not afraid of sharks. He's more fascinated by them. I mean, he understands that sharks don't generally feed on human beings, and he'll prove this time and time again throughout the movie by jumping in the water with Jaws.
Right.
Sorry. So the next day, Brody and Hooper try to convince the mayor to close the beaches again. And we're going to see that iconic Amity Island sign again, but this time it's got the graffiti on it. And I think this is really how we all remember seeing it. This is the pop culture of the sign with the big fin and, help shark or whatever she's saying.
Yep.
Sick vandalism.
Yes, vandalism. Exactly. And this is where we get some more great lines from Hooper. He goes, "You see that scale? That's about right. This man wants to line up to be a hot lunch."
That's it. Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I'm going to see you later, brother.
Yeah, really good stuff here. Do you have anything to add on the sign and the vandalism, Tony?
It's you're grasping at straws. Like, this man's not going to listen, and everything they say is 100% accurate. It's like, look, that's right, and the fact he brushes. You'd like to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name in the National Geographic. He's not listening to anything this hippie has to say. No. This is 1975. This is the long-haired denim jacket, an Islander. I don't know you from anybody. You're not going to come in there and tell me my business. I know what's good in this town.
So we get the 4th of July at the beach here, and we're going to get the 4th kill. Yes. So we see Brody and Hooper. They're coordinating from Brody's house, trying to get people to patrol the beach, and so we see a newsman here. He's on the beach and he's doing interviews. That's actually Peter Benchley doing the cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thought that was interesting. And no one's swimming, so the mayor convinces everybody to go in by putting some pressure on who was it putting the pressure on?
It's one of the selectmen.
One of the selectmen, yeah. So he's putting the pressure on him. He wants people to go in and swim, and they do. And at this scene, Brody asks his oldest son, Michael, he wants the kids to put the boat in the pond. He doesn't want them to put it. The pond's for old ladies. He said, "Do it for me today." So this was going back to the beginning of the movie, a little foreshadowing. So he had cut his hand on the swim. Do you think maybe the hand is still open cut? Maybe some blood's getting in the water, and that's what draws the shark into the pond?
I never thought of that, but that's actually really. I mean, come on, you're not even doing it right. It's like maybe he can't tie the knot because he cut his hand. I never even noticed that and put 2 and 2 together.
Well, they made the point of showing the bloody hand in the beginning and adding that scene. I'm like, why are they showing this? The hand's bleeding pretty good in that scene. So I thought that was.
I always thought the bloody hand was kind of a little bit of foreshadowing,
Right. Well, yeah. So I thought it was weird that the shark decided to go into the pond, but whatever. I guess that could just be a little bit of theory.
That again, I look at that whole scene of just how it all plays out. It's like total misdirection. You're expecting Crown Beach to be where it is. You get the fake cardboard fin.
Yep.
Takes the attention away before we even see anything happening in the pond. And then you get, the painter, the shark. And that's when everything goes to hell.
And right.
And also you have that moment of comedy where the little kid goes, he made me do it.
Right. Now,
so there's a moment of where you can breathe because you've been holding your breath because everyone's swimming and then they've seen the fin and then they give you just 30 seconds of comedy and then boom, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Again, another point that I always loved is the fact that, right as soon as that all ends a little bit, he's like, and Ellen Brody's like, "Oh, I've got Sean." And next thing you need is Sean running alone down the beach. Michael, take me with you.
Yeah. Little kid
terrible
running
mother.
towards the
There's
highway.
nothing good. There's nothing good about you whatsoever. You're a terrible wife, terrible mother. It's like everything is just wrong. But anyway,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the two kids are playing the prank with the cardboard fin. I mean, these kids are lucky they didn't get shot. Am I
Right.
right?
Yeah.
1975, baby.
Yeah. So we get the fourth kill here. You know, the guy with, hey, you kids okay out there? You kids
Yeah.
okay out there?
Yeah, he was kind of a creep. He kind of deserved it.
Yeah, he did. He kind of reminds me of my neighbor. So we get a pretty cool shot of the shark here as he goes underneath the boat, and Michael sees it. And I love the way the shark looks in this scene.
Terrifying.
Yeah, super terrifying, huge, scary. So let's talk about this kill scene. Go ahead.
It's never out of the water. The first time you see it, it's under the water hitting him. Like, you know,
Yep.
you see how the boat rise and then go over. And then when you see him pull him under, you see the scale. That's the first time you actually see scale
How big
what we're dealing with. And it's like, oh my God. And then of course everybody falls over, and then the screaming, and the leg goes down. And the point of view, which always confused me when I was younger, the point of view flying by Michael, you figure, all right, that's the shark.
Yep.
What it really was is the original. And there's stills of this, I'm sure everybody who's a fan has seen, of him being, you know, like Chrissy was in the beginning towards the buoy. He's basically in the shark's mouth, being dragged, and he grabs Michael and drags Michael with him as he's spitting blood out. And then he lets Michael go. So we're looking through the guy's eyes as he's coming towards Michael, and he grabs Michael and tries to save himself, and then basically pushes Michael out of the way, and then goes underwater.
Interesting.
Just Google estuary victim, and you'll find those pictures.
Well, I actually have the movie running right now. It's about to hit that scene, so I will be looking for that in a minute. They pull Michael out. He's in shock, and they're going to take him to the hospital. And here we get a line by Ellen where she says, you know, take him home. And she says, you know, our home in New York. And he says, no, our home here. I think she regrets leaving New York. I don't think she wanted to come to Amity, and I think she wants to go home. What do you guys think?
Oh, at that point, yes, she's done. She would literally throw everything she has into a suitcase and drive away, no problem.
Yeah. Yep.
I just wanted to come from the beginning.
Very possibly.
So she basically went from big city to small town, and she's the chief's wife. You don't. And again, going with the times, didn't have a job. She was a housewife. There's nothing going on an island. She didn't have anything to do.
That's right. Except for Hooper's brother, or Hooper, right?
Yeah, Hooper.
Hooper. So I did want to say, you know, when the shark is coming into the pond, we do get that scale shot where you're seeing the dorsal fin and the tail fin. So you're getting to see that this is a super, super long shark in that scene. I thought that was pretty good.
Also, very quickly before we move on, I did read a thing about how in all of the scenes when you're coming like shark view, like not from below, but when you're like at water level, they had used a special thing so that like water droplets wouldn't get on the camera lenses. But in this scene, when all the people are freaking out and coming back onto the beach, they purposely didn't use those so that the water droplets would hit the cameras and it would create that chaos and create that fear.
Yeah, that's great. I never picked up on that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So the next scene, we are going to meet, we're going to have Hooper meet Quint for the first time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be at Quint's place. And I love this place. You know, he's making moonshine. And there's some great lines here, some really fun stuff. You know, scrambled eggs and wobbly legs or bowed legs. You know, he tells, you know, Quint gives Brody the shot, and Brody takes a little sip and is like, this is not good. And then Hooper grabs one and he goes, don't drink that. And you know, Hooper drinks it, and this is where we start getting this great dynamic between Quint and Hooper. You know, he's telling him, you know, let me see your hands. You got city hands. This is soft and counting money. And, you know, and he said, you know, I'm not taking them on the boat with me. And, you know, Brody basically at this point says, look, this is my charter. He's coming. So reluctantly, Quentin decides to let Hooper come on board. And, you know, Hooper is able to tie the special knot that, you know, that Brody has no idea. I mean, yeah, Brody has no idea how to do this knot. And he tries to figure it out, you know, for the next few scenes, which I think is pretty cool. So what do you guys, anything on this scene? I thought it was great.
Oh, it's dynamic, which is actually, this is where I started to really love Hooper and Quint.
Yes.
Up until that point, Brody is the know-it-all. I mean, Hooper obviously knows sharks, but Brody's the one everyone's looking at going, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to solve this?
Yep.
This is the scene that Brody knows nothing. You realize that he's now at the mercy of the scientist and the fisherman.
Yep.
And it's just, and watching Hooper, you can see in his face, he has this wonderment of Quint. He's like amazed. He has this like, oh my God, this guy is real. I can't believe this. And he loves it until he gets challenged.
Yes.
And he starts, I'm not going to working class hero crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just, you see the shifts literally in about a 5-minute scene. Everybody's roles change.
Yep. But what's amazing about their dynamic is they're both more than capable of catching jaws in their own ways. You know, Hooper's going to do it with science. He's got all the toys. He's got the poison dart. He's got the cage. He's got the science. You know, he's Mission from Mars here. Matt Damon. He's going to science the fuck out of this. And then you got Quint. He's going to muscle this thing onto the boat. You know, with his barrels and his, you know, so it's kind of cool watching them team up and, you know, figure out how they're going to do this together. And as we know, I won't spoil it, but neither one of them succeed.
Yep.
So the next scene is them loading up for the boat. And we get a great line here from Quint as, you know, he says, you know, what's that? He's looking at the shark cage. And, you know, he says, so, you know, you go in the cage goes in the water, the shark is in the water. And then he starts singing the song, we don't see you no more.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.
And I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's an awesome little song that he sings, and just like, oh, you think you're gonna get in the water? Okay. Like,
yeah.
And you know, we see Hooper's got all his stuff laid out. He's got so many little doodads and gadgets, and this is kind of fun little fact. And I had read up on it before we did this podcast, but I actually noticed it going through. If you look at the orca sign on the back of the boat, it changes a lot from scene to scene. It's shiny sometimes, it's dirty and rotten sometimes. Did you guys notice that?
I did not.
Painted on sometimes it's a plaque. I've tried to collect those letters, and like, well, do I want a sign painted like it, or do I actually want brass? It's like, which scene do I want to pull it from? The continuity in this movie is after seeing it so many times, it's a little bit to be desired, but you know, just watch the movie.
Well, but it's funny though, because I would have never noticed it had I not, you know, read up on it for the podcast. So, and I've seen this movie a million times. And I also wanted to say in the scene at Quint's, there's some really neat shots of the sharks, you know, the sharks' teeth. And there's one specifically, you know, we're going to get where the camera shoots out the window through the shark's mouth at the boat going out.
Yeah, that was another one of the ones that I have marked down for outstanding cinematography. You know, like the boat's going out to go for the shark, and they're shooting it through the dirty window with the big shark mouth, and it's just an amazing shot.
That's actually, I love that. That's one of my favorites as well. It's actually the cover of the Mondo release of the soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Shot, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got a couple of shots in this that are my favorite too that we'll get to that are they're just beautiful shots on the boat. So all right, so this is what I'm calling the hunt. They're going out. They're going out on the boat. We see them leaving port, and we're gonna get a close up of the shark. I said for the first time, but I guess the first time really is where he attacks the guy in the little rowboat. But we don't get a super good look at Jaws there, but we do get a look at him. So Brody's chum in the water, and Quint's in the strap-in fishing chair. And this is great, man, when you get that little click, click, click. And, he's got something on the line. And he slowly clicks in and click, click. And then, boom, it takes off running. And this is a great scene. And, he ends up losing the fish. And, Hooper says it was a tuna, wasn't the shark. And Quinn says, and it was the shark. And, look, you bit right through this line. And, I like this is when he says, you're too proud to admit that you're wrong, basically, to Hooper. And what do you guys think? Was it Jaws?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The fact that he was able to reel it in, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
That's actually a good point.
Well, the fact that he literally pulls the boat when they're trying to, tie it off to the cleats. There's no way he was reeling that thing in.
With just arm length. Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I'm with you, Tony, on that. I have to agree that I think that definitely was probably a tuna, like Cooper said. So this is one of the shots that I really love. So this is a shot from over Quint's shoulders. He's up in the crow's nest, and you're seeing him from over his shoulder, and it's a shot down onto the deck. Cooper's playing solitary, and Brody is chumming the water. And this is where we're going to get the classic, jump scare,
Yeah.
just out of the water. This is where, we get this great shot. And I was seen it 1,000 times, and I saw it this time, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that's great. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a perfect classic. It's the classic moment of the entire movie. Like when people think of Jaws, that's the scene you think of first and foremost. If you ask me, before you think of the Kintner kid, before you think of Chrissy, you think of him throwing the chum out and the thing popping up and the famous line.
Yeah, the ad-lib line, yeah.
And this is where TC proposes to Brandy Spenning.
In Mallrats.
Yeah, so that was a little Mallrats.
Wow. Nice one. I'm impressed with that one.
Thank you. Thank you. And so we're going to need a bigger boat. That was improv by Roy Scheider. He just came up with that, and it turned out to be probably one of the best lines in the movie, and one that we've all used a million times.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
So yeah, at this point, Quinn's not hearing any of it. There's not going to be a bigger boat. Nobody else is coming in. He's getting 55 grand today's money to catch this shark, and that's it. And it's either he's getting it or they're all going to the bottom of the ocean with the shark. So Quinn sets the first barrel on Jaws, and the chase is on. This is a great scene. You see the barrels, you see the boat, everything's moving along quick, and you're getting that great music, man. I love this music. What do you guys think?
The chase, yeah.
Yeah. Because it's instead of that dun dun, it's almost uplifting.
It is uplifting. It is.
Yeah.
It's happy, positive music. It's again, this movie knows how to bring you up and make you feel good, and then punch you in the stomach and bring you back down underwater again, and they bring you back up for another quick breath of air, and then hold you underwater again. And that's what makes this movie so great for me. So we're going to get some awesome shots here of dusk. You're going to get some shots of, Quint out on the very edge of the boat with that red-orange sky. Just some awesome cinematography here. I absolutely love these scenes. What do you guys think? You guys agree? Just great stuff.
Quint smirking at Hooper on the bridge, just leaning against the rope on the bow with the gun across, just looking like I told you so. It's just that's possibly one of my next tattoos is going to be that.
Yep. You took the words out of my mouth. I said that is a tattoo if I ever saw one. Just amazing. So next we're going to be in the galley, and they're getting drunk. Now, the actor that played Quint, he had an alcohol problem. He was a drunk, as everybody knows, and he thought it would be cool to do this scene drunk. So they actually shot it drunk, and none of it was usable. So he came back in the next day, and he actually delivered that USS Indianapolis speech in one take, and he added a little ad-lib to it and kind of made it his own, but that's getting ahead of it. So they're eating dinner, and Hooper and Quint start, comparing, injuries. And I thought this was a really great scene. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to think you have these two guys who have been at loggerheads, and like you said, the smirking at each other and the barbs, and all of a sudden now they've they're having a drink, they're relaxing. For the second, the shark is forgotten, and they're, of course they're still talking sharks because they are who they are. But, they take a minute to take a breath and focus on something else and, have a kind of fun discussion and goof around a little bit. And it's a great scene because you actually feel like there's a camaraderie building there between these two men who really don't like each other initially.
There's a friendship starting here, and we'll get to it when they're working on the boat together. You just see their hands coming up out of the holes. I mean, they've now got respect for each other, and Hooper's definitely gained Quint's respect. Do you agree, Tony?
I do. I think that scene, they're going back and forth, and they realize that, they can be serious, but they can also joke when he says the Marianne Moffat part. We see what, again, I use the same one of Brody is here. He's looking at an appendectomy scar on his stomach. He's got nothing to show for this. But it's great when they sit down and they start to, and then it's getting rowdy, and they're all into it. And then the first bump happens. Both Quint's the first to notice it, Hooper's the next to notice it, and they're both serious, like what the hell's going on? And Brody's still belting out the song like an idiot. It's like, yeah. It's like you can see basically the order of on the faces.
Yep. I mean, poor Brody is out there with the zinc oxide on his nose and holding a cloth covered in Old Spice against his face because the chum is making him sick. Exactly. So,
So again, this is another perfect example of this great dynamic of, just bringing us up and down. So we have this great scene where they're comparing stories and, and it ends with, Hooper doing the old, she broke my heart. It's really funny. And then, Quint points at a tattoo he had removed, right? Is that what it was? Or he had a scar on his arm. He had a scar on his arm that alluded to the USS Indianapolis. I don't remember exactly what it was. I thought he had a tattoo removed or something because Hooper's saying, what was it, Mom? Or, you know what I mean? So he says, he was on the USS Indianapolis, and the mood immediately changes, and Hooper knows the story because, Hooper is a shark buff, and, this is probably one of the biggest mass shark attacks ever. And the mood changes, and Hooper's like, "Whoa, you were on USS Indianapolis." And this is where Quint delivers that awesome speech. And let's take a minute. We're going to listen to that clip.
Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. It was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady and just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 1,100 men went into the water. The vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer. You know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret. No distress signal had been sent. They didn't even list us overdue for a week. Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. It's kind of like old squares in a battle, like you see in a calendar, like the Battle of Waterloo. And the idea was, shark comes to the nearest man, that man he starts pounding and hollering and screaming. Sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. The thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red. In spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. by the end of that first dawn. Lost 100 men. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men. They average 6 an hour. On Thursday morning, Chief, I bumped into a friend of mine, Herbie Robinson from Cleveland. Baseball player, bosun's mate. I thought he was asleep. Reached over to wake him up. Bobbed up and down in the water. It was like a kind of top. Upended. Well, he'd been bitten in half below the waist. Noon the 5th day, Mr. Hooper, Lockheed Ventura. So as he swung in low and he saw us, a young pilot, a lot younger than Mr. Hooper anyway. He saw us and he come in low, and 3 hours later, a big fat PBY comes down and started to pick us up. You know, that was the time I was most frightened, waiting for my turn. I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out. The Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
There's really nothing to be said about that. Just the intensity, the inflection, just everything about it is perfect. Delivered by him. And I've heard other actors, their quote take on it, like jokingly and stuff, trying to be serious with it. But it's like no one will ever deliver that speech in that way, that perfectly.
Okay, so my two favorite speeches delivered in a movie is as follows. The first one is by Rutger Hauer playing Roy Batty in Blade Runner. It's the death scene at the end of the movie. And the second one is this one by Quinn, delivered at the end of Jaws. Can we decide which one is better?
Oh, I don't think you can compare them because they're apples and oranges.
Yeah, two totally different feels, two different characters.
Yeah.
But both at the same time, both of them are about loss. Both of them about personal facing death and loss. So, I mean, you can compare them to that point, but I wouldn't be able to choose.
Okay, so now we're back up on deck and the barrel reappears and Jaws is going to take some shots at the orca here. So let me ask you guys a question. Do you think we start to see Quinn maybe come unhinged a little bit at this point in the movie?
I mean, hasn't he always been unhinged?
No, I mean, no, it's been controlled unhinged. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I think at this point he's panicking because even in the scenes before that, I've never have you ever seen one do this before? No.
Yeah,
and he can't go down, not with 3 barrels on him. He can't.
Yeah,
and
I've never seen the one to the boat before. No.
This one fish is doing everything that no other fish has ever done before. So it's kind of each new encounter is like, oh. So it's I think you hit on the head. This is really when things start to go downhill for him.
Yeah. And I think he just refuses to ask for help for whatever reason, whether it's the money, whether it's the pride or what, but he just refuses to ask for help, as you see when he destroys the radio. But
yeah, I think at this point he's starting to realize that he's not going to be able to catch it, but he knows that if he concedes, he's going to lose this bounty. And again, $55,000 for a shitty shark fisherman in Amity is like, that's it. That's life-changing money. That's like $1 million now.
Yeah, next few years off perfectly.
Yeah. So he's going, like I said, he's either going to the bottom of the ocean or he's bringing the shark in, and no one's going to take this opportunity away from him. So we see Jaws again, and then Brody tries to call the Coast Guard, and this is where we see Quinn come in with that. He smashes the radio, and again, I think that he's starting to come unhinged a little bit there, and I think everybody's seeing it. Brody's pissed. He's like, "What are you doing, guy?" So Quinn gets the second barrel in the Jaws. Jaws now swimming around with 2 barrels. The orca is starting to look a little rough at this point. They try and tie Jaws off to the 2 cleats on the back end. Cooper almost loses his legs in this. He's in a bad position.
Yeah.
And, Jaws starts pulling the boat backwards, and it's filling up with water. They have to cut the shark loose, but they do get another barrel on him, and the shark is able to go under again.
Which I got to say, that that is one point where I did want to bring up is the fact that even though that's his in this time frame, that shark is Quint's life.
Yeah.
This is if I'm going to live or die. This is everything, because this money is going to either make me or break me. And the fact that he was the one that cut it loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
That had to kill him.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't like. All right, I respect you, Hooper, but I'm my money. But it's like that scene. It's something that I feel with people who discuss the film don't discuss enough. That's a huge choice for that character.
Is that you're talking about when he hits the rope with a machete?
Yeah, and he cuts the cleats off because they can't get it undone.
Yeah, I mean, he realized at this part, if he doesn't, then the chase is over. I mean, the boat's going to be inoperable if they hold on to that shark for literally one more minute. And it almost is anyway.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. It's not looking good.
Okay, so at this point in the movie, this is where things kind of flip-flop. Quint and Hooper and Brody have been chasing Jaws now in the Orca. But for the final act here, the tables are turned, and now it seems like Jaws is chasing the Orca. And let me ask you, is Quint scared here? Is he running from Jaws? Or is he really trying to, draw him into the shallows to drown him?
Dylan, I'll let you go.
Well, I don't feel like he wants to particularly run from the shark at this point, because I think he just feels like there's probably not much other choice. I think he figures there's not going to be any money if he doesn't get back to Amity, if he doesn't bring the shark in. Like he's like running out of options, but he's running that engine so hot.
Yeah, so that's my point.
It's like run it a little, like you don't have to run it quite so hot and you can still get there. Like, why are you running it that hot? Like, are you doing that on purpose? I mean, obviously he's doing it on purpose.
That's what I'm saying.
What's the point?
Like, is he scared? He's running balls out trying to get away, and you could have lowered him in there slowly and maintain the motor. Tony.
That's a hard call, and it's something that I've discussed in other places. The fact that you can see him pushing that motor like down all the way, but he's still the head bobbing like, come on, and he starts to sing his farewell in a duty, like he knows it's over.
Yeah.
He knows this is my end, and when it finally blows, and come on, shut it down, Quint, shut it down. It's like, I don't know. It's so much scared as much as obviously he's all pride driven. At that point, everything he's
go ahead.
No, everything he's tried has failed. He's got 1 barrel, 2 barrel, 3 barrel. He tried to done his way, hasn't worked.
Right.
And that's where it is.
He's doing this funny motion with his head, kind of like, the Watabi brothers. He's like, when he's out running the shot, he's like, yeah, there it is, huh? I'm faster than you, see? I can outrun you. And it's kind of this funny motion he's making with his head. And I'm really just trying to wrap my mind around why he didn't just, run the boat, 3/4 power, bring the shark in, and drown him in the shallows. Like,
I mean, it could be a little bit of pride too.
But he's this close to getting that money that we've been talking about this whole time. It's all about the money. No one's getting sharp at me. And now he knows this boat. He's the captain. He knows every nut and bolt, like Galaxy Quest. He knows this ship. And he's going to now purposely blow it up at the finish line. You got 10 yards to go, touchdown. You win the Super Bowl.
But he doesn't think he's at the finish line.
Yeah. I thought it was an odd scene.
I mean, you look at Ahab. He sacrificed his ship to get that white whale. He did the same thing. So I mean, that's what that was based on, and that was based on pride and the fact that he wouldn't listen to anybody. Same character. This is well, it's my ship. You're a ship, but it's my charter. So that he wasn't hearing it. Even back in their shop, this is still my ship, and what I say goes. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, no matter what you say.
Well, I think that answers the question. It's funny because I guess we did gloss over the fact that Hooper went up there and was like, "Hey, shut it down, shut it down." He's like, "Well, tell me what to do, kid."
I think his actual, what he says to Hooper is,
I break the insurance here.
Yeah, then he takes a swat at Brody as well, where he tries to get up there.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, the boat is basically dead. They got no radio. it's going down. They know the boat's going to sink now, and I think this is where Quint basically concedes that he can't catch the shark, and he looks to Hooper and he says, can you do it? Can you kill the shark? What do you got in these toys, right?
Yep.
And then he turns to him and looks for his help, and this is where Hooper says, well, I got this dart, and if I hit him with it, I think I can kill him, and so they put him in the cage and they lower him into the water. And this is where we're going to get we'll get a couple of great lines. Got no spit. He can't clean off the inside of his goggles. He shit his pants. He doesn't have any spit. He's done. So he goes into the water, and this is where Jaws is going to tear the cage apart, and we're going to get a shot of a real great white tearing the cage apart. And I freaking love this shot. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Absolutely beautiful live shark footage. It lends a ton of realism to the movie where, Bruce is a great puppet and all, but he's a puppet and it's really obvious he's a puppet. And I'm sorry?
In some scenes.
Yeah, in some scenes. There are some scenes where you can't tell, but there are some scenes where you can really tell. This is a great shot because it's terrifying, especially when the shark is doing that roll on top of the cage. It's like, oh my God, it's terrifying.
Yep. I wish they had feathered a little more real shark footage into this movie because it was super effective in this scene. It worked and it would have been easy for them to do. I think they leaned on the puppet maybe just a little too much in this movie, but I was really happy to see that they used the real shark here. I thought it was awesome. And another fun fact is I have a little rainbow shark, and his name is Bruce, named after the puppet. So Bruce is downstairs right now eating shrimp.
Nice.
So we see Hooper get away. He drops the dart, so that's gone, but he is able to get away and hide in some coral. And Quint brings up the cage, and this is the final scene pretty much, and we're getting there. So at this point, I do have a problem with this scene. So Jaws flops up onto the boat. We're going to get a side shot of Bruce here, and it doesn't look good. I'm sorry. It doesn't look good, and, Quint's going to slide down into Jaws' mouth. Now, there's some really bad shots of the shark here, and this is just, in my opinion, and it's surprising. It's not edited enough. And there's one shot of the shark. It's a straight-on shot where Quint is in its mouth. The shark bites down, and Quint spits the blood out, and the shark just looks freaking great. The puppet looks amazing. It's a dead-on shot of the shark, and I feel like that's all we needed there. We didn't need these extra shots from the side and all that. We just didn't need it. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it was pretty bad. What do you guys think?
Blasphemy.
No,
it's hard to deny when the shark jumps up on the boat and bends kind of in half. You're like, oh, it was a quick shot. Thank God it didn't lurch, didn't linger on it. But when the shark does come up and open the mouth, that's one of the best ones ever. And that's.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose if you you got to think of how little you saw of the shark through most of it, and it's very effective.
Yeah.
You don't need to see a ton of the shark. You're still believing it. Your mind is filling in the blanks. You've seen the big shot of the gigantic shark going underneath the orca. You've seen it in the estuary. You've seen,
That's exactly right. So you get your 3 money shots. You got your first one where Jaws gets the guy in the rowboat. Your second one where Brody's chumming the water, my favorite, of course. And then you got your third one, which is the climatic kill scene on Quinn, where the puppet looked absolutely amazing from dead on. I'm just not quite sure why they gave us that side shot.
I mean, if you're jumping ahead a few scenes, and even after that attack, when he's below Brody and Brody's stabbing it looks amazing still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like those shots are just beautiful shots because the paint on it, the coming out of it, everything looks hyper realistic to me.
Honestly, the scene where Brody's back inside the orca and Jaws comes through the windows at him, every time it gets me.
Amazing. And the puppet looked great, and I loved it. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't think I missed anything here. So now, Quinn's been taken under. He's dead, and the boat is pretty much going under here. And this is where we had that foreshadowing early. We basically have already seen the end of the movie. Brody's gonna put the air tank in the shark's mouth. He's gonna climb up to the top of the crow's nest. It's gonna tilt over, and Jaws is coming straight at him, and we get that classic line, you son of a bitch. And he doesn't actually say son of a bitch, but he takes the shot.
Yeah,
He
smile, you son of a butt, and then takes the shot.
And this is a great scene. I don't know if anybody has any facts on it. What was that exploded? Because you can almost see the big bone, and it looks great when the shark is going down with no head.
I actually don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But I don't know. I have all the books I read. I'm sure it was mentioned, but I don't know what they actually used for the shark.
It looked great. It looked great.
And right as it's coming down, you get the little twinkling keys, and it's and then it hits right where the camera is.
Yep.
And Spielberg, because he grew up as a huge fan of monster movies, you hear Godzilla's roar underneath.
Oh, really?
Stop it! Really?
Go back and listen.
I'm gonna have to now.
You'll hear a roar underneath it, and you're like, "Good for you."
Just on another side note, and I'm sure you both know this, but both shooting stars that they caught in the movie were both legitimate shooting stars. Those weren't added in. So, and it's a beautiful one. That the one specifically is like, wow, that's like catching a unicorn.
All right, so at this point, much to Brody's surprise, Hooper's going to resurface, and Brody's going to inform him that Quinn actually didn't make it. And I think we can see that Hooper is upset by this news. I mean, he was taking a shining to Quinn, and at the very least, he had gained respect for the man. So they're going to make a makeshift raft out of a couple of the yellow barrels and a piece of wood, and they're going to start paddling back towards shore. And, comments made, I think we got the current with us, which I thought was kind of cool. And I thought this was a perfect ending scene. I don't think I wanted to see another scene back in town. What do you guys think?
No.
It was, again, people have written fan fiction, and I've read a bunch of different theories, like scenes afterwards, and none of them have ever done any kind of justice except for the two of them going home.
All right, so I think that'll do it for the discussion, and now it's time for us to give our rewatch scores. I'll go first, and then Delyn can give us hers, and finally we'll let our special guest give us his final thoughts, being the Jaws aficionado on the podcast today.
So for me, this is almost a perfect movie. It's almost a perfect 5 rewatch for me. I'm going to take 1/4 of a rewatch away. I'm going to give it 4 3/4 rewatches. And the reason is going to be the editing of the shark in the Quinn scene. I feel like they missed an opportunity to edit that scene together where it would have been way more powerful, and it would have been the real dramatic final kill. And it kind of took me out of it a little bit with those side shots. And for that reason, I'm taking off just 1/4 of a rewatch. And this is as close to a perfect movie as you can get. So 4 3/4 for me. Glenn?
All right. I'm going to go right out there I'm going to say it's a 5 rewatch for me. It's a perfect movie. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 97% critic and a 90% fan. And this is for a movie from 1975. Like, that doesn't happen. The cinematography is beautiful. The editing, other than a couple of little minor quibbles, is perfect. The story has been condensed down from the book to give you just the meat and the bones of it. And it's just, I thought it was fantastic, and I can watch it over and over again. And I have watched it over and over again. And the emotional beats still ring true. The jump scares still ring true. And I would say you can watch this over and over again. So I'm giving it a 5.
All right. And Tony, what do you think? I already know.
Delyn pretty much said everything I was going to say. So
I'm sorry.
No. You've saved me a lot of blah, blah, blah. So yeah, no, it's there's only a handful of movies I could watch over and over and over again. Don't get me wrong, I'll watch every movie over and over again, but there's only a few I'm going to go grab, off the shelf and put in.
Right.
This is easily the top for me because it literally has everything. It has the humor, it has the action, it has the horror, it has the editing, it has a hometown feel for me. I mean, we're from Boston, so it's like we know the area, we know the beaches, we know the feeling of being on those beaches. And growing up, who didn't yell Jaws to their friends when you were going in the water to mess them up? This movie influenced every generation after it with terror of water.
Agreed.
Psycho was the only other movie to really do that, to affect a whole generation of an incident. So I mean, obviously I'm going to wrap this up. I'm sorry. 5. It's going to get 5 for me. You know, it just outside of Army of Darkness, this is the only other movie I've bought every version of that has come out, because there's always one little snippet of extra stuff. You know, an extra making of, an extra soundtrack, a little thing. I'm always going to buy it because it's just such a special place in my heart for this movie.
I can appreciate that. Yep, this movie actually made me fear swimming in my grandfather's swimming pool at night. So yeah, it was effective. All right, so with 5 rewatches from Dylan, 5 rewatches from Tony, and 4 3/4 rewatches from me. This is the DESA sliding scale, which we all know has absolutely no science to it at all. This is going to be 4 9/10 of a rewatch.
Nice.
This is a perfect movie. And if you haven't seen Jaws, what are you waiting for? Go see this movie.
So thanks for listening to Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie? If you'd like to support the podcast to help us give you better content, you can do that on the Anchor page. And I would like to thank Dylan, my lovely co-host. I would like to thank Tony, our special host today. You did a great job. And you, the listeners, for stopping by and supporting the podcast. We do record this podcast on the Anchor app. It's a great app from beginner podcasters all the way up to more advanced podcasters. So if you're interested in starting a podcast and getting your content out there, check out Anchor. So until next week, thanks for stopping by.